Welcome to the Generous Business Owner Podcast, where business owners gain inspiration and encouragement to live a legacy, not just leave one. And now your hosts, Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's Generous Business Owner Podcast. My name is Jeff Thomas. We have two special guests with us today. We have Alisa Huber. Say hello to the people, Alisa.
Hi, everybody.
Now, for the home gamers, the super fans of the Generous Business Owner Podcast, you would know that Alisa is Jeff Rutt's daughter. So she is, taking the place of Jeff Rutt, but she's got a friend of hers here on the podcast, Leigh Ann Horton, today. Say hello to everybody, Leigh Ann.
Hello, everyone.
And thanks for being with us. She is the CEO at AIT Life Safety and Trinity Advisory Services, amongst many other projects that we'll get into. But we're really looking forward to hearing your story today, Leigh Ann. Alisa, why don't you start off with our first question about the early years?
Yeah, Leigh Ann, thanks so much for being here. I'm really excited to hear more of your story and just excited to hear about growing up. What was your experience like, and what were some pivotal moments for you?
Thanks so much. So I grew up in this incredible family, and I know that's not always the case for everybody, but I was super blessed to have two loving parents who are still around and who love the Lord and who really modeled generosity and what it looked like to be generous. And I didn't even know then how that would become important later. And I was born in Florida, grew up in Orlando, Winter Park, Florida. My parents were there, and now I moved to Orlando. They're really sister cities, so they're close by. And then went to college at University of Florida. But then I started my career in New York City, which was super fun. I worked for KPMG. I am a CPA by trade, although I don't really have to worry about tax deadlines and that sort of thing, but run all the different business from a financial perspective. I had an older brother and a younger sister who I'm close with now. And I don't know what else you want to know about the childhood, but that's a little bit about my background.
That's not that common Leigh Ann and I have had a conversation before, so we're both public accounting people right out of school. And most of the time, you would go right to Orlando or somewhere in Florida if they're recruiting at a University of Florida. That is not that, even though a lot of New Yorkers go to Florida, it's not that common to go straight to New York. What was the catalyst for that?
You're absolutely right. So I had an internship between my senior year and graduate year with IBM in Somers, New York, and it was right outside the city. And we had a lot of fun that summer going into the city. And I just kind of got a wild hair and said, you know what? Instead of going to Orlando right away, like you would, let's see if I can start my career in New York City. So lo and behold, I did that. I was there almost 2 years. Had a lot of fun, and then transferred back with KPMG to the Orlando office. Huge pay cut, of course, but
Cost of living.
the living
Cost of
cost
living.
of living all adjusted fine. Yeah.
So now this is definitely a precursor. That little vignette of the Florida girl saying, you know what, let's just start the career in New York. That adventurous spirit is there's going to be a string of that through, I think, through this whole story. So tell us about how long were you at KPMG, and then what happened next?
Okay. So I was at KPMG for about 5 years, and I was getting close. I was on the tax side, getting close to making manager. And I'll never forget, I got an offer to be the international tax manager for Hard Rock Cafe in Orlando. And my partner at the time said, "You can't leave. You haven't made manager." And I was like, well, they're actually going to make me manager, so I'm going to scoot on over there. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years. And then I had a friend who wanted to start the CFO consulting role. or a company and wanted me to be her partner. And I was like, at that point, I was about 28 years old. And I thought, how in the world are we going to be CFOs? And she's like, oh, it's okay. Small business people, they don't really know much about numbers. You know about tax. I know about audit. We'll be just fine. And there we go. I took off and started that company in 2009. So.
Wow. So right after the financial crisis. Now, listen,
Actually, I'm sorry, that was 1999. My
99. Okay.
second, the
Okay.
company my husband and I bought was in 2009. So sorry.
Okay. But still, that's a big risk. Most people don't study, speaking from experience, most people don't study accounting to be entrepreneurs. Okay. So now you're kind of shifting. The first move made sense. Okay. New York, that was pretty aggressive. Okay, got it. The Hard Rock deal, that sounds like standard protocol. About to make manager, make that a big company, pretty stable. Now your friend wanting to do, see, that is a big jump. So there had to be some struggles early on with that. What was
Yeah,
it? What,
so this is fun. So my dad is I would call him a little bit of a riverboat gambler. He is an entrepreneur through and through, and he would agree with you. And he has always been successful, and always owned his own company. He's owned his own insurance agency. And so I saw my brother went to work for him, and here I was, this bean counter. And so I think I always saw them like, playing golf on Fridays and doing these things.
yeah.
And I'm like, wait a second, I think I want to own my own business. So it actually, although it sounds like it's a big leap, I didn't grow up with a father who, was like super sit at a desk all the time. So it kind of was natural that I didn't think it was any big a deal at all. And she was showing me like, here's how much money we can make. And, I was very, I think, enthralled by the money at that point in my life. Like, okay, let's make some more money.
I want to bring Alisa in here in a minute, but I want to kind of set the stage for sort of these businesses. So you did that. I mean, you still have some advisory business, but maybe just kind of give us a little picture, fast forward to how you got into some of these other businesses and what it kind of looks like today. And then I'd love for you guys to have a discussion around kind of women doing well and that sort of
Sure.
thing. Maybe
Sure.
catch us up to from there. I know there's a lot,
Okay.
but
So, yeah, and I can do it pretty quick. So
okay.
basically, when I started that business with my friend, I did that for about 10 years. And then at that point, God really was kind of pricking my heart like, you and your husband, my husband is Vince, he was my high school sweetheart. I've literally had one boyfriend, or husband my whole life. And he and I wanted to work together. We had met a really generous couple that owned a business together. And I just kind of was seeing like that's what God wants for us.
Hmm.
And so he was in construction sales. And so in 2009, that's when my husband and I bought a company together. So I sold my portion of the CFO consulting business, used that money, and he and I kind of went on this pathway of being entrepreneurs together. And since then, we've started and bought or started a couple more things. So that's what we did. And but I will tell you what really kind of grew us to closer to the Lord was when we bought it. Here I am. I think I'm so smart. I'm a CPA. Should know exactly what to pay for this business and how it should run. And it's I don't know, but God let this happen. We overpaid, and there was some fraud involved, and we almost lost everything. So I went from this like thinking I'm super successful, super know exactly what I'm doing, to all of a sudden we were like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. And only God is going to get us out of this. And we pulled one child out of private school. We had to, I cut coupons for 2 years. I mean, my friends will tell you, like, Leigh Ann was the queen of coupon cutting for a while. We really had to dig in, and we had to, say, Lord, I think you wanted us to do this. We think that we asked your permission, but what in the world is going on? And it was a real time of pruning for us, and digging in, with as a couple. We just said I had signed a non-compete on the CFO consulting side, so I couldn't do that. I had to
Right.
literally just work in our own business and strap in and do it. And then, of course, God showed up big time. But we had gone to a generous giving event that very first year we bought the company, and we were there. And I remember almost like crying out to the Lord, like, I mean, I used to be able to give a lot of money away, and all of a sudden, we weren't making the money, and we were actually going to have to pull back from some of the giving commitments we made. But you can't give what you don't have. And so it was really tough. But God got my husband and I praying together. It was like, I have heard, of course, had heard about couples praying together before work, but had never really experienced it. And so we dug in and we started praying and saying, Lord, we think that we are in your will. We want to be in your will. This is all yours. And everything, I won't say it all went up into the right, but ever since that, I think it was really good to almost lose everything to realize what's important and what's not. And I think I mentioned I was kind of obsessed with counting. I had my personal balance sheet and I was always looking at the numbers, and God really like got a hold of us and said, it's not yours anyway. It's all mine. And I will decide when and if I give you anything to steward. So that was a big mind shift for us.
Yeah, I really like that. Um, I- when we started Arcos 8 years ago, I had my little spreadsheet up, because our brains kind of work the same.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, God, what do you want me to put as the growth rate? He's like, yeah, you're not putting me on a spreadsheet. Knock yourself out, big fella. But anyway,
it's
I'll
true.
do.
It's true.
I, the spreadsheet is not, I'm not constrained by the spreadsheet, so. I think that's amazing. The drive to prayer, kind of breaking you of the, hey, you're in charge and everything just moves up by 15% a year or whatever the number is,
Right.
that kind of thing. So, Elisa, let me bring you in. Let's talk a little about women doing well. Maybe, Elisa, how would you bridge this conversation to that world?
Yeah, well, it's been fun to get to know you, Leigh Ann, through Women Doing Well. And
Yeah.
thanks for serving on the board there. And just, I know I've loved engaging and learning from that community through the pathway and through other women there. But I've loved to hear what that experience has been like for you to engage, because you talked about giving alongside your husband and how that's been powerful as a couple. But what has it been like for you to give alongside and in community with other women too? And how have you also engaged your kids in this journey and how have you engaged as a family?
Awesome. So, Women Doing Well has been around for about 10 years, but about 4 years, actually, right as COVID hit 4 or 5 years ago, they had relaunched. And Julie, who's the president of Women Doing Well, is a good friend of mine, had lived in Orlando. And so she kind of got me involved as they relaunched. And the very first patron event was out in California. And I went. Again, I know Julie, and I said, sure, I'll come. Generosity at that point had really become important. It has always been important. Again, I had mentioned my dad and my mom were super generous, and so tithing for us and giving God back to what's His anyway was easy. But, and I say this, but again, back to me counting and like, well, have I given? I mean, this is how bad I was. I went back on a spreadsheet, and Jeff, I know, can laugh at this, like to the first time we ever filed a tax return in 1996. And have I given at least 10% or more? I mean, that's how legalistic I had become
Yep.
with giving. And I was super proud of myself because, we had inched it up above 10, 11, 12, things like that. And it was, again, God had to say, stop this, like it's all mine. And as I'll remind you, I can take it away from you real quick and I can give it back to you. And so when for the first time, and I really was starting to live into that and really, kind of giving everything and really praying over everything we did, not just, in the morning, just like, really, Lord, what do you want to do us to do next? So all of a sudden I end up in California, all with 40 women who, for the first time in my life, I have a lot of incredible Christian friends, but maybe giving and generosity is not their get to. And that's what I always say, like, Women Doing Well, the women here, giving is a get to for them. It's not a have to. And there's a big difference there. And I was surrounded by these incredible women all over the country who really love generosity. So it got me super fired up. And I went to Julie and said, okay, how can I, help? She's like, oh, I need a board chair. I'm like, wait a second. I just I just got here. But sure enough, that was kind of the right role for me. I'm going to finish my last year as board chair this year. And I've just been so blessed by incredible women. Got to meet you, Alisa, through this. And it's just been such a pleasure. I think you had asked about kids and how that
Yeah.
has transpired. So ever since we got a giving fund through National Christian Foundation, we got our kids involved at the end of the year and said, again, we're starting to learn, right, that this money is all God's anyway, and we're just stewards. We're not owners of this. So let's get our kids involved too. And we would have a family meeting at the end of this year. I mean, at the end of every year, and have them say what their charities were. But now, fast forward, our children are 25 and 21, and we actually gave them a portion of a family holding company. So we've now set up their own DAFs and are encouraging them. We just did a family stewardship plan, and we told them we'll match every month, every dollar that goes into their DAF,
Huh.
not just by the money that flows through from us. So it's been incredible to see. In fact, my son recently, this is so funny, he won a bet through some betting, organization. He's like, Mom, and it was a big bet. He won he said that the Gators would win the national championship before it started, and we all got to go. And so
Oh,
he
nice.
literally got a lot of money. And he goes, Mom, I need to tithe on that. I'm like, yes, you do. So he's getting ready to put that money in the DEF. So, and then he's like, and you're going to match it, right? And I was like, oh, I guess so. Yes, sir, I am.
I love
Fantastic.
that idea of a match. That's amazing. That's a
Good.
great way to encourage their giving. Yeah, and I love what you talked about the learning in community. I know that's been a great part of Women Doing Well for me is just learning together and engaging in this community and spurring each other on in fun giving and creative giving. I know that's something I've learned from you is, I mean, just by nature of your career and your personality is very planful and purposeful in your giving. And I know you've also done some spontaneous giving too. And I'd love to hear how have you teased out both sides of that? Maybe what does that look like for you if you've gone on that
Yeah,
journey?
so sometimes there can be a lack of joy around giving, and so I think a way to, or sometimes like you feel you write a big check or you transfer a bunch of money, and it just feels more transactional. And so during COVID, I'm a part of a group that my dad and some men started here called it's called Florida Fellowship Foundation. It's just a small not-for-profit. But one of the men came up with this idea of, hey, let's put $50 in an envelope. And the envelope is a sweet little letter that basically just says, this money is given by somebody who loves the Lord and basically God sees you type thing. And so now we carry around these envelopes and just as the Holy Spirit will prompt, I will give them to somebody. Or the other day I was at the grocery store and I felt like God just said, you need to pay for her groceries. And I was like, okay. And so I've learned to just kind of listen, and it feels so incredible because it's like just a one-on-one with me and God trying to be more spontaneous. It's easy, I think, at least at this stage, to do the transactional giving, but trying to look for ways that you can bless people during the day has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that. I think it is
Sure.
joy in this journey is so important.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think God has space for both the purposeful and the spontaneous
Yeah,
giving and tugs on our heart in both of those. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I love it.
sure, sure.
I have a question for both of you guys. I know before we started recording, you were talking about trips that you're taking and this sort of thing. And that's another way, I think, to experience the joy is to actually see the work being done. Alisa, I know you've done this recently with your kids. Maybe you can share a little and then tee up Leigh Ann for maybe her story there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've loved traveling. We've had a chance to visit the programs of Hope International, and I've taken my kids along and just
Yeah.
have had the opportunity to see firsthand what God's doing around the world. And it is really, really special to experience that together and to draw our kids into um, how the rest of the world lives, and to see the generosity of Hope entrepreneurs, and to see them living generously, not just with their resources, but how they're generous with their time and their community, and being just really purposeful in the way that they're living. So I've learned so much as I've traveled, and to see it through my kids' eyes too has been really special. And yeah, we got to take a women's trip too recently. Women Doing Well went to Dominican Republic to visit Hope's work there. And there is something special that happens when women gather, and we got to walk through um, the pathway together and have these meaningful conversations about storing up our treasures in heaven, and thinking about what that looks like as we're visiting entrepreneurs. So it's been fun to do that together. Yeah, and Leigh Ann, you got to go to a big trip recently. Tell us what were the
Yes.
highlights for you.
Yeah, so it was actually it was my sister and Michelle, so two women that are patrons of Women Doing Well, grabbed a group out of Charlotte, and I went along for the ride. And we did go to a Hope International. I can't remember if it was Rwanda, Tanzania. We were in both those countries. We ended up seeing three different ministries. And it, again, like you said, something about getting outside of your comfort zone a little bit, and interacting with men and women, but we did the women's giving group was for Hope International was so beautiful. It was a bunch of women who, originally had been in some type of prostitution, and now through their giving savings group had been able to stop that lifestyle, pull other people out of that. It was so incredibly beautiful to see that. Hope International has always, because I'm a CPA and because I love the whole idea of the micro loan, it's always been such an inspiration to me. And so then when I got to meet you and realized that your dad was it's just so cool to see how God can intertwine some of these stories and pull things together. But my daughter actually, through our church, had gone to Africa, has gone to Africa more than I have. And
Wow.
so my sister and I are now dreaming about a trip with our joint families, which I think will be super. My son's we did a DR trip with our kids a couple years ago, but we're looking forward to some future stuff too.
That's neat. Yeah, it's so fun to see, just to make those connections, and to see how some opportunities and financial services and spiritual training and guidance and can transform lives. And it's fun to see that and to experience what God's doing. So glad you got to go
Let
do
me
that
let
for the
me
family.
let me ask you guys a dumb male question for a second. So this is why I need both of you on here
Okay.
to help me out. But start with Leigh Ann with this question, and then Alisa, I'd love to hear your perspective too. What is it about as a woman, and why is women doing well necessary? Okay, what is it specifically about being a woman? What are the challenges around giving for you and other women? You think what are those unique challenges? What are one or two that you think of, Leigh Ann?
So, the whole reason Women Doing Well exists is because the statistics are telling us that by 2030, the transfer of wealth will be more than 50% in the hands of women. And no offense, Jeff, to you and the men, but typically organizations, I mean, big organizations have only talked to the men,
Right.
especially when it comes to giving, they look to the guys. And so we were seeing that women weren't equipped for these conversations. And
Okay.
we've met plenty of widows, or maybe divorcees, people that have gone through life changes, and all of a sudden they're in charge of a good amount of wealth, and they don't really know. I mean, they know they love the Lord, and they know that they probably should, but they're not equipped. And so that's what the pathway helps them kind of get purpose, passion, and plan around giving. And so now, as 5 years later, organizations are actually taking notice. You'll see a lot more like women's groups around giving, and lots of which is because they're starting to see the statistics we're seeing. So again, it's no big deal. It is what it is. But women need to have their own thoughts and ideas about what the giving should be in their family. So.
Lisa, what would you add to that?
I'd agree with everything you said. I think that's great. I think for me, it was two things. It comes down to clarity and influence. For me, there are so many good causes, and I think I had trouble saying yes and no to the right things. And so I would just kind of say yes to everything. But to have this clarity of here's the things that I'm really passionate about. It doesn't mean I don't care about those other things, but it means that I can maybe make introductions or share them with someone else who may be more passionate about them. And it almost gave me permission just having this conversation with my pathway group allowed me to permission to say no to some good things so I could say yes to some really great things and clarity around what I'm most passionate about. And then just thinking about the influence that I have with women around me, and I have young kids at home, and so the influence I have on talking with them about our giving and what does generosity look like. And Christ has been so generous with us, and that's where we learn about generosity first and foremost, and then how do we live out of that. So that has been important for me, just thinking about the influence I have over the little ones in my home and walking alongside my husband as we, influence them in these young years.
So
And so thank you both for that. And then Leigh Ann, just to kind of add on to that. So through the Pathway program, what did do you mind sharing kind of what did you figure out as your passion? Did you kind of have some language and some focus? Well, can you describe that focus? And then maybe how do you work with your husband as well? Kind of that relationship. So what was the focus? And then how do you work with him?
I was going to see if I could grab it. So it's a great question. So for me, just like Alisa, things became, you figured out like what you really care about.
Right.
And so I knew what I cared about. And so just recently, the president of Generous Giving here and the president of NCF, they're doing these family, they call them family financial strategy planning. And so we came together, he and I, with them and figured out what are our core values as a family and what are our passion areas. And it was really fun to do it with my husband so we could figure out, kind of what aligned. And we came up with a one-page kind of giving strategy. And one of the things we talked about was experiences over stuff.
Mm.
And that's where we also just came up with, okay, every dollar our kids put into a DAF will match. These are things that are just now evolving through it. And so now, and then we have the areas that we love. And so we can say, no, that's not that's not, one of our passions. And you don't have to say yes to everything because I felt that way for a long time as well.
That's really cool that you did that exercise with your husband to kind of, because it's easy. Sometimes I go to things, maybe my wife will go to things. I know that her passions are a little different. And sometimes it's helpful to have a facilitated, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Kind of
it was.
space for that.
It actually was such an it was like 5 hours, and my husband was like, "What are we agreeing to for 5 hours?" It went
Right.
by so fast. It was so exciting, and we both felt so much closer to each other and so excited about where God's taking us in
It's
this.
so cool to have that integration. Alisa, how's that been for you, having gone through that as well? And if you don't mind kind of taking us through your situation there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I walked away with a purpose statement that was affirming significance. And that for me has looked like walking alongside organizations in this season that are Christ-centered, that are caring for the most vulnerable. And I just get really excited about walking with people who are passionate about doing those things. So and doing that, like I said before, with our kids too. So, I mean, our family meetings are a little crazy right now. Our kids are 2, 5, and 7, so the attention span's real short. But talking through, like, okay, what are we passionate about as a family, and how can we support ministries? Okay, let's talk about giving. What does that look like? Let's talk about praying for those ministries and getting on our globe, and somebody's finding it on the map as we're praying for, what's going on around the world, and just being a good steward of our resources, but also our influence, our time, thinking about there's things that we can do in this season and things we can't, but we can maybe make introductions to other people in our network, or share exciting work with those around us. So yeah, we get excited about being good stewards. So
Well, and this is maybe Leigh Ann, maybe you and I can learn a little from
I'm sure we
Alisa,
can.
because in one particular area that's very interesting, and we work with families at Arcos all the time, and the kid thing is the number one question we get. How do I involve the next generation? And I know your family has worked really hard at that, but I think when let's just call a spade a spade. When your father founded a ministry, and he is obsessed with that ministry for good reason. We all love it. We are too. Okay, all of us. But obviously, there's some pressure there. I'm sure unspoken, maybe it's spoken. How do you work through kind of that world where you're exposed to hope? I know you're involved in it, but then at some point, just like your own faith, you kind of got to live into your own thing. What's that process been like for you? I think, Leigh Ann, maybe we can learn about how to deal with our
That's
adult
great. I
children
want to hear.
this way. Yeah.
that's a big question, Jeff. Yeah.
Well, you don't
Oh
have
my
to have the
goodness.
right, you know what I mean? It's a work in progress, I'm sure, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say first and foremost, there's been no pressure
yeah.
to be involved. Certainly not spoken or unspoken. It's been an invitation to engage. But yeah, I mean, my parents are so excited about Hope. And we've had many opportunities to engage. And I think, this invitation to see Hope's work firsthand and to travel to the field gave us a childhood that was pretty unique. And
When did that start for you?
Yeah.
yeah, I took my first trip as a third grader. So
Right.
yeah, I was in third grade and I went to Ukraine for 10 days. And I think that really set me on a path of how can I be part of what God's doing, and really gave me a heart for the global church, and just the most vulnerable around the world that were hurting both physically and spiritually. And that just felt like an invitation to me that my parents were planting seeds along the way, and inviting us to be part of this work. And that's looked different for each of us and different in each season, really. So, but it's been fun to engage, and we are excited about hope. My husband's a numbers guy, like you both, and so he gets excited about the numbers part, and I get excited about just the stories of transformation when I meet women and families, especially around the world, and can see my story and their story and how similar we are, and yet how we face different challenges. I get really moved by those stories of transformation. So
I
Because I
love
think
this
a lot of
word.
excited.
us,
No, I
Yeah.
love that. I love Leigh Ann,
Yeah.
what is stirring you?
I was just gonna say, Lisa, I think it's so beautiful because I think a lot of times, like,
Mhm.
I'm not really gonna see some of the effects until I get to heaven. I feel like God will show us, but like I feel like you with your parents have gotten to see on this side of heaven, y'all have gotten to see firsthand the fruit of being generous and being faithful, through hope. It's just
Yeah.
wow. It's really kind of incredible.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and one of the lessons, one of the sort of principles we talk about a lot with families is empower, don't control. And okay,
Mm.
it's a lot easier, by the way, for me to preach that than to do it. By the way, full confessions here. So Leigh Ann, I mean, your kids are growing up, they're adults, they've got their own way. Do you see that maybe their expression of your family values is a little different, maybe from the way you do it? How do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. You want so much for your children. You want them to have like, a good, incredible relationship with the Lord. And you just want to see them, happy and successful. But with that, there's you only get there, like Vince and I could only get to where we are going through those tough times. And so we have to allow our children to fall down, to make mistakes, to maybe even not walk with the Lord. Like I'm sure there's plenty of people listening right now whose children are not walking with the Lord. And that's okay. I mean, there are seasons. One of the most favorite verse in the Bible is Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old or her, he will not depart from it. And so I've loved and held on to that for so long. And recently my son, sent a picture of them going to Palm Sunday church. And I was like, yay, so excited. But I mean, does he go to church every Sunday in school, in college? Nope. But, again, I'll take the wins when I can get them. And I know that God loves my children even more than I do, which is hard to imagine. And so I just always hold on to that he, just like he had to take us through some hard times, they're going to have to go through their own struggles. And no parent wants to watch a child hurt or suffer, but it's all a part of God's, plan.
That you took us to that place. We call that the gift of the struggle. The struggling is actually a gift, right? I always think about the little baby bird in the, in the egg. It's like, don't crack it open. They build their little muscles, by their strength by getting out of there, even though it's hard to watch. It looks painful.
The gift of the struggle. I'm writing that one down. That's
gift
good.
Of the struggle.
Yeah,
you got to give. And sometimes when you have resources, and many people listening to this have resources, you feel like you can kind of insulate them from the struggle. The truth is you can't, to a certain extent. You kind of got to let them have it. So if there's not a natural gym for the struggle, you got to kind of create it in terms of with the guardrails. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And let them do that. So I'm so glad you brought that up. Well, this is so much fun. We could go forever, but as we sort of kind of move toward the wrap up, Leigh Ann, I know there's some women listening to this. I know their friends sent it to them because they're, they got this business mind that you've got, and they want to be more involved in these kind of things, but maybe they're a little behind you on their journey. And what is just a practical tip for some woman that maybe kind of is listening to this thing and says, what do I do tomorrow? What's a next step for somebody behind you?
So I would say find other women who are like-minded. I felt like God gave me this huge gift with women doing well and putting me in touch. I didn't even think, this is so silly, but I didn't think I needed any more friends. And then I found all these friends through women doing well, and I couldn't live without them now. And so there's just something different about surrounding yourself with the right people. And it starts, of course, by, going to church, but then, if generosity this is something that really kind of resonates with you, find other generous women, grab, you can get a hold of us through Women Doing Well, and we'll put you in touch with people. We'd love to have you as part of our community. And then if this is all new to you in general, I would just say, start small. If you're not, giving on a regular basis, I just challenge you to do it, because it's the best ride. I think the generosity giving is the best ride of my life, I would say.
Love it. And what's the best way? We'll put it in the show notes, but what's the best way to get a hold of being involved in Women Doing Well?
I think Alisa, am I right? Just you could do info@womendoingwell.org, or you just go online you can say
easy
contact.
To find.
It's easy to find. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We'll put that in the show notes, because I'm sure there's some people that would love to be a part of that community. Well, this has been so much fun. Leigh Ann, thank you so much for sharing your story and your passions in this area. It's been a real joy.
It's been a pleasure to be with both of you guys.
And Alisa, thanks so much for sharing your story as well, and teasing out these issues that are so important to this community of generous business owners.
Yeah, thank you. What a fun conversation.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for joining us also this week. Share it with a friend, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Generous Business Owner Podcast with Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt. Make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can find the guest contact information in the show notes. Stay tuned for the next episode.